What's up guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is David Hamlin, aka the Laptop Legend, and I'm making this video to talk about my new biggest ever loss in my career, which if you read the title of the video, you probably know is about $400,000 that I lost on this stock over the course of just a couple days. So I want to dive into exactly why that happened and what takeaways I have so that I can avoid taking another loss. Maybe not of this magnitude, because if I keep scaling up, I'll probably take a bigger loss than this at some point, but I think to avoid taking a loss this stupid again, or this unnecessary. So hopefully I can learn from making this video, and hopefully you guys can also learn as well and avoid taking an unnecessary $400,000 loss in your own careers, because it's something that I would rather have you guys avoid and rather have me avoid again in the future as well. So let's just dive right into it, man. So the ticker was HKD. If you've been following me at all on social media, or following the stock market at all, you probably saw this thing because it made an absolutely insane move. $7.80 IPO. Lowest it was at on IPO day was about $12.10, I believe, and it got up to a high of $2,555 in just a couple of days, man, like less than 2 weeks. So pretty wild move there, and this is the one that got me, man. This is the one that got me, and I want to dive into the chart and talk about what happened. So on, I guess in the first few days after the IPO, so here you can see that was the low right there, right on the first candle. It wicked and then went into an up halt, and then it kind of took off after that, but this is normal. We've seen a lot of these IPOs, through these Chinese companies that are they're going crazy and then they end up dumping. And this one in particular was not that much different from any of the other ones. It had a sub $10 IPO, and they end up opening it higher than the IPO price, end up pumping it up over the next few days, and it has this dump where it looks like it's starting to die. Now the volume on this one really wasn't that great, but there was still the chance that this could just die. We've seen ones where the volume isn't super great at the beginning and it kind of increases the selling as it gets lower, like AMTD recently. So I considered the possibility that it could do something like that, and knowing that the IPO price was $7.80, I knew that this thing definitely could go back there in one day. So when this thing sees a massive dump from 30s down to 15, and then this bounce gets stuffed here, it tries to bounce and gets stuffed and makes a new low, I end up shorting into this bounce here around the $15 area, and I'm short 1,750 shares from like a 15.10 average. So that's a very small position for me on a stock like this. A lot of times I'll play these with 10,000, 20,000 shares, but this one I didn't feel super confident because the liquidity was not that great, and it's a good thing I didn't take more size, because you can see what I ended up doing after that. Ended up grinding up. I think I took it off somewhere in the 17 range for like a $4,000 loss. Not a big deal, but the point of this is I just want to show you the beginning stages of what ended up happening. So you can see here, it has a bounce and then it dumps a little bit, but it just goes sideways, completely sideways from 12 p.m. until 3 p.m. So like over 3 hours, it cannot break this 1775 level. And if you look at the history, if you were watching it live or if you have a recording of it, you can see that there was an ARCA seller. They were selling a ton of shares, but they were only showing 100 shares on the level 2, and they were just sitting at 1775. So I don't know how many tens of thousands of shares they sold. I don't know if they were long. They could have been a short, thinking, all right, this thing has to die, so I'm going to short a bunch here and just catch that nice fade whenever it does end up dying. Anyways, what ended up happening was, you can see, eventually they broke that 1775 wall and it went straight up after that. And I'm glad I wasn't, stubbornly holding my short, because as you know, it turns out to be pretty crazy as the time goes on. So this thing turns into a massive squeeze. Again, it could have been someone who shorted there, I don't know, but it makes kind of ABCD pattern where you get a push, a dump, make higher lows, and then go up in there, and then once you break that high, it just kind of goes crazy. So that's the thing about this stock. Pretty much every time it broke out, it ran like 100%, which is what's crazy. And if you were patient and bought right at the breakout level, honestly, it worked every single time. So the reason that I lost so much money on this stock was because I wanted to just take a small piece or a large piece of a big move with with small size because it adds up. And in the past, I've done this on, you know, several other stocks very successfully. BGXX, you know, it had a kind of a blow off top here, same situation. It's a low IPO. I think this was either $4 or $5, goes way too high. And then sellers come in, you hop in, you can swing short even with small size and get a really nice move. I think I made, I lost some on the front side, but I think I made back, you know, like over $20,000 shorting just like 500 shares, you know, in this area and just swinging it short. So you can really get a nice move on this. And that's what I was expecting. Same thing with GRRR. Grr. Sounds like the angriest ticker ever. But you know, you short some with small size once sellers come in into a crazy push, and it fades off. You know, you get a crazy 70% dump just fading over the next couple of days. So I was expecting something similar with HKD. Now, mind you, again, I'm flat. You know, I covered those shares for like a $4,000 loss. I do end up getting squeezed a little bit in this. I think I lose about $10,000 in this squeeze, and the main reason is, again, you know, I think it's a little bit overextended. But what you can see is it gets some pretty trappy action. So it goes into up halts, and then straight into down halt, huge gap down. Normally you don't see reclaims on this. You know, it stuffs, you don't think it's coming back, but then it just grinds up and breaks those highs. Same thing, you get a huge pullback, but just absolutely reclaims. You know, it's crazy. Huge rip back up there. I mean, just $20 per share straight up off of those halts. So if you're not being super proactive in covering, you know, if you're looking for a bigger move, if you're trying to short here at 60 and then cover at, you know, 15 or 20 in the next few days, you lose every time, because although you might be profitable on your position, if you never take it, it just comes back and reclaims. And that was the story of this stock. It did that over and over and over. And I never learned my lesson. And it's tough to learn your lesson on something like this, because the higher it goes, you know, if you can have shares once the top is in and just hold them, you get so much downside. And that was kind of a siren's call on this particular stock, because it never worked out. So, you know, if you had shorted into this, you got a nice fade the next day. You know, you could have shorted in that 75 area and covered down at 40 for more than 40% gain. Would have been nice. But you can see here, it does a similar thing. So it does an ABCD pattern where it pushes, comes down, makes higher lows, grinds up, and then puts in such a clear top here at that 75 area, 80 area, you know, tries to break, rejects, tries, rejects, tries, rejects, tries, rejects. And that fifth time, when it breaks, man, it just goes pretty much straight up out of that. Like, just straight up. So if you bought here, you could have just held, man. And it went straight from $80 to 160. I guess it did do a similar thing there where, you know, you have that big up halt and then a huge gap down out of that. So, you know, some of you might have gotten spooked out by that, but really, there was no clear topping action on this thing. There was just nothing. And it just kept making higher lows, which is crazy. Now, the higher it goes, the crazier the manipulation and trapping action gets. And I want to get into that in a second here. So the next position that I took after I lost the 10,000 on that squeeze day was I shorted, I believe, like 600 shares from a 162 average or something like that. Because at this point, I'm thinking, oh my goodness, you know, this thing is crazy. It just went from 12 to 180s or something like that. That's pretty wild. I think at this point, you know, we're getting close to whatever the top is going to be. I think it could do something similar the next day where, you know, we see it at $80. So I'm trying to catch a piece of that. And I think in this case, it was FOMO, man. FOMO got the best of me. You know, I didn't want to miss the crazy downside that I knew eventually would happen on this thing. So I just kind of shorted, and I was thinking, all right, I'm going to have a wide risk on this because I know it could push higher, but I also know that eventually it's going to see a huge collapse off of those highs. Unfortunately, if you're early, even with small size, you can lose everything if you don't cut. And I'm just so grateful I cut because, you know, I lost roughly $400,000 on this stock. I could have lost millions, literally millions. You know, if I'd kept my original position from 15 bucks, that's 1,750 shares short, I would have been down over $4 million at the top. It's freaking crazy, man. It's wild. It's absolutely wild. Even this one, I would have been down over $1 million on if I hadn't cut it. So again, I swing that overnight from these levels, and you know, the next day I was positive there. It ripped up, went into an up halt. Let me zoom in a little bit more. I just got to narrate this whole thing, man, because it's just such a crazy move. So this is typically the topping action that you see. So you get this thing that goes crazy, and it goes red, so traps more shorts here, reclaims immediately, goes into up halts, has a big gap up, goes straight into a down halt, I'm pretty sure, if I'm not mistaken. Oh no, okay, it doesn't go into a down halt. Okay, yeah, that makes more sense. So it tries to go into a down halt, but doesn't, immediately rips back up, and I think it goes into an up halt there. And when it reopens, then it goes straight into a down halt. Huge gap down, another down halt. I think tries to up halt and then goes into another down halt. Anyways, it ends up getting down below my average, you know, so I'm positive here by like, I think close to $10,000. Again, 162 average, 600 shares, you know, it's down at 145 or whatever, but just immediately rips back up. And what we saw in WNW was something similar to this, and it kind of grinds up, but then it fails before high a day and it fades off. So I just want to talk about some of the previous charts that I was thinking of, you know, in terms of what you could expect on this and why it was so difficult. So Elfin, this was back in, you can see here in 2017, December 2017, went from, you know, 469 all the way up to 142.82. So you do the math on that, it was about 2,900% in you know, a few days. But this is the ideal price action. This is what I want to see, because it kind of grinds up, but then when it actually goes insane, you can see it just goes straight parabolic. Halt, 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 halt. And then once you get the down halt, you know, that's where you get the crazy gap down, you know, I guess 50% gap down from where it actually closed. But, you know, from the highs to the lows there, I mean, that's, okay, well now it's cutting it off. It's a big gap down. I guess that's the point I'm trying to make. Yeah, you know, you get 50-60% gap down. You get a nice bounce off those lows, man. I mean, the bounce was 67% bounce. You can short the bounce, get more fades off of that. If you catch the actual bottom here, you know, you get over 100% bounce off the lows. So this is the type of price action that I was looking for on HKD, but it didn't happen. And that was my mistake, you know, getting FOMO and trying to catch this thing when it wasn't giving the good price action. So I also want to show you WNW. Let me just go back here, see what day we need to go to. All right, so we need to go to 12/22/20 on demand. 12/22, just so you can see, you know, what WNW did. And this was a very similar one with very sketchy price action. So, you know, we get a cheap IPO, goes pretty wild, grinds up, does, I guess, go red out of the open. So very similar there. And then reclaims and goes straight up halts. Just absolutely straight up halts. I guess it was a little choppy here, but, you know, once you get the top, you get the massive gap down, I guess, from the top to the lows there, 50%. Very, very normal out of these. And then, you know, you get a nice bounce, 70% bounce. And this one, again, it actually kind of grinded up. But you can see it never actually breaks the high. So it actually breaks this high right here. And I'm sure some people would have gotten spooked out if they were short, but it never breaks these highs. It never breaks these highs. And that should have been my warning signal to just get out and stop messing with this thing, because it's not behaving like a normal stock. I do want to go over the percentage real quick on this just to see. So what is that, 731. So you can see that's about, you know, 2,100%. So again, that's pretty normal. You know, you get 2,000%, 1,500%, 2,500%, 3,000%. That's like kind of the max that we expect. DRYS, a lot of people were referring to that one as, you know, an example of what it could be like. And DRYS was like, I think 2,500% around that area. So again, that is what's typical. I just want to show you what it is on HKD, so you understand why it was so crazy. 1205. This was a 21,000% squeeze. 21,000%. So the previous craziest tickers you could think of, they went, 2,000%, 2,500%, 3,000%. This one did almost 10 times that. So if you're thinking in that range, like, all right, I'm gonna short somewhere around that 2,000% range, and I'm gonna risk, 100% or 200% to give it a wide stop. Or you maybe you don't even have that stop in mind. You're just thinking, all right, I'm gonna be able to hold on if it goes that high, because it's gonna fail in that range. It's gonna fail maybe 3,500, 4,000%. You are just so off, and that's why this one was such a killer. But again, the sign to get out should have been right here, because this was the topping action. It should have failed right here. The fact that it reclaimed, consolidating near highs. Once it rips over, man, it's just game over. And you can see it goes straight up from there. Again, you buy at 240, and this thing goes pretty much straight to 480. It's nuts, absolutely nuts. The breakouts just worked really well on this. And here was another super trappy day, man. I mean, the action on this is, if you're a short seller who has FOMO, it's just so easy to lose on this. So I ended up cutting the other loss right here, those shares from 162. Again, I cut them for like a multi 100% loss, almost 200%, I think, or like 150, something in there. I cut them right here as it was trying to break out to new highs. When it stuffed, I ended up reshorting in after hours. So I'm thinking, all right, that's the stuff. We're gonna get a nice fade the next day, and it's just gonna be beautiful. Well, it ends up fading. I'm short 1,000 shares overnight from 382 this day here. And you can see, it hit a low of 280. So I was up $100,000 on that short. But then it just reclaims, man. And like that, it just immediately rips back up. And the thing about this stock is the spread is so horrible. It makes it really hard to manage risk, because you can see how quickly it skipped up here, man. That is, I don't know how many shares that, bro. What is that? Like less than 2,000 shares. This thing moves up here. It's absolutely nuts. And if you try to stop out, you're thinking, all right, I'm gonna risk here, risk 340s. It halts, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, it halts at 340s and it reopens at 380s. So that's $40 a share. And right there, I'm already break even. I'm like, dang it, I should have taken it off. But now I'm just gonna wait and see if it fails at these levels again. And it sort of did. I was up again there when it failed. I thought at this point, all right, for sure, we're chilling, but they saved it again at this 350 level. Comes back up, goes towards the high day, and I had to take it off here at about 450. And that was the rest of what I lost there. And I didn't touch it again after that. I didn't touch it again. And good thing, man, because if I'd shorted again, I'm sure I would have lost again. Now, the issue is, I knew that this breakout was going to be really good, but I'm so scared of this thing getting halted, because DRYS got T12 halted in pre-market, and it was down 90% the next day when it reopened. Maybe not the next day, but whenever it reopened, like a day or two later. So I was really worried about that happening on this one. And that's why I didn't long it, man. Even though this was an absolutely killer long. You bought here, and you buy it 470, and it goes straight up, and you sell it 900 plus in after hours, man. I could have bought 1,000 shares here and made $500,000. It's pretty wild. It's pretty wild. And you think that's the top, it stuffs off the 1,000 level, but you'd be wrong. Just so crazy, man. Such an insane move. So super trappy. And then at that point, I'm so, what's the word, man? I'm so mentally drained that I can't even hop back on it. Like, I don't even want to touch it. I feel like the stock is cursed. So, the day the top is in, it does this. Actually, no, I think I may. Did I take it this day? One of these days I may have taken it. I may have taken like very small size on one of these days, actually, on an intraday trade. But I think I shorted here, and then I ended up covering here. Like, I was short from maybe 1,900, and I ended up covering here at like 1,850 or something, and got spooked right before it dumped down to 1,000. you can see like no volume whatsoever. Just super illiquid, disgusting name. So yeah, man, that was this stock. So the blackest of all swans. And I think the biggest takeaways for me moving forward are just that I don't want to swing trade stuff that has low liquidity. Swing trade stuff like this where it's super manipulated and you know it shouldn't be that high, but it doesn't matter that it's that high because the manipulators control every single movement of the stock, so it doesn't have to behave like a normal stock. And that's why, you know, it went almost 10 times higher than the previous ridiculous, most crazy short squeezes that we've ever had in history. So that is something that I really want to take to heart moving forward, you know. Also, I've made a lot of money this year on really good IPO dump setups, but this was not that. And I've made that money because I'm willing to risk more when I know the setup is great. And I knew this wasn't that setup, yet I still was willing to risk multi-six figures on this trade. And I think that is that's an issue. You know, if you're taking a setup that's just kind of an setup, you know, I would call this that swing short that I guess, you know, I entered at 160s. I would call that maybe like a B setup, maybe. It worked out again on you know, some of these other ones, but it can work out 5 or 10 times on these, and then I get squeezed on this and give back all those gains and way more. So it's just not worth it. You know, it's very tough to time the top on some of these things, and man, it's one for the history books for sure. I'm surprised that they let it go on that long. Again, I don't know if someone got paid off at the SEC or what happened at the New York Stock Exchange, because this thing literally was top. I think it got up to like top 11. I'm pretty sure, like the number 11 most valuable company in the world in terms of market cap at the top here. Definitely top 15. So I don't know. I don't understand why that was allowed to happen. But it is what it is, man. And at this point, my main thing is just I'm trying to work back mentally from this loss, because it can have a huge impact on, I guess, how willing you are to risk money on good setups, which is a big issue. You know, I'm very gun shy at this point because of this loss. Whereas before I would be totally fine risking, you know, several $100,000 on a great setup because, you know, I did it on this one. I thought it was a great setup. Now I'm kind of uncomfortable with that type of risk, which means that, you know, if I get another great setup that rolls around, I'm not gonna be able to take full advantage of it, and that's kind of sad. Overall in the year, I'm still up really, really nicely, but you know, it's frustrating to, I guess, take such a needless loss and ruin my mental capital, because I'm just not prepared for whatever great opportunity is going to come next. And that's disappointing, man. That's very disappointing. So yeah, that is the HKD squeeze. Ripped all the short sellers on this, man. I mean, literally, I know personally of millions of dollars in losses on this stock, so pretty wild. I'm not the only one who got caught on this, just because it was such an unprecedented move. The blackest of all swans. I said in the Discord that it makes all the other black swans look like they're light gray swans, because seriously, almost 10x any other crazy move that you've seen in history. So pretty nuts. Yeah, that's all I can think of to say. So hopefully you guys learned something from this video, learned how trappy it was, and don't make this same mistake, man. Don't randomly short stuff that is moving up too much in your opinion, because you can lose everything. You can always lose more. It can always go higher. And this is a great example of that. An absolutely perfect example of that. We've never had one like this. So I'll see you guys in the next video, whenever that may be. I'm not sure. But until then, you know the drill. Let's grow better together. Bebé, dime por qué te mientes. No puedes esconder todo lo que tú por mí sientes.